successfully preventing a potential fire disaster on Wednesday after a petrol tanker overturned at the Rumukuta roundabout in Obiakpo local government area. Now, reports have it that the tanker spilled premium motor spirits as petrol on the ground, posing a significant fire risk. And that is exactly what happened. The acting commanding officer of the 760 Transport Battalion, Major Al-Mustafa Shawal Adams, led the 6th Division fire crew in a rapid response to the scene. And the team, alongside other agencies, implemented safety measures and conducted fire prevention drills to avert a major incident. Now, the area was secured and the emergency response ensured that no casualties or property damage occurred. Lieutenant Colonel Jonah Danjuma, the acting deputy director of 6th Division Army Public Relations, highlighted that the operation demonstrated the Nigerian Army's commitment to civil-military relations and support for local communities. The General Officer, commanding Major General Jamal Abdul Salam, commended the troops' prompt actions, affirming the division's ongoing dedication to public safety. Let's go back to what actually happened, aside commending the army and the division and all of that. Just recently we had a report. In fact, it was reported by almost all the papers around the world. It was a very sad incident here in Nigeria, which had been in the news for some time. There have been reactions to that particular story. But now again, we're having reports of what is going on with tankers and, these accidents these days.
Thank you very much. I think I need to start by commending the Army and other sister agencies that were equally part to avert what could have been a major disaster. And like you rightly said, just recently we had a very sad incident that almost, that took the nation by surprise, where a lot of people died in Jigawa State owing to tanker falling and, the fire that ensued.
Yes.
But in this case, I think being proactive this time around prevented what could have been a disaster, and I'm sure that it wouldn't have been easy because that area is a central area in the city of Port Harcourt. And you could imagine if the situation was not properly put under control. So with that, I want to commend the military. And like I said, I know Riwama was equally there. The road safety corps was there. So everybody was there to prevent anything from happening. But then again, like you said, how do we, reduce this incessant falling of tankers? I think that question is a multi-million-dollar question because one is either there is something technically wrong with some of these tankers, or the tanker drivers themselves, maybe there has to be a need to evaluate their mental states, because assuming the tanker is in good shape and the driver is not in good shape, then it still poses a very grave danger to both the driver and the road users. Then if that is the case, whose responsibility it is to evaluate, monitor and review the conduct of tanker drivers? We are aware that most of these drivers are usually under the influence of substances, and you could imagine what that could do to the mental stability of somebody that is moving around with not just a tanker, but tanker bearing products that is highly inflammable. So for me, it's going to be a responsibility of both maybe the Tanker Drivers Association, the tanker owners themselves, and the National Union of Road Transport Workers, I think they are somehow affiliated, you know, with the Tanker Drivers Union, then the Federal Road Safety Corps. You know, so it has to involve all the major stakeholders in the transport, you know, sector to demystify why do we continue to have these cases of tankers falling. And you know that, you know, it's something that whenever it happens and, you know, there is an inferno, the amount and number of casualties are usually in a very high side. So these are the issues. The stakeholders in the sector need to look into this aspect. Is there anything wrong with the tankers? Is there anything wrong with the tanker drivers themselves? Then we can now begin to, you know, proceed on how to avert this incessant petrol tanker, you know, falling all the time.
I think it's high time we actually looked into it, because this is not the first, second, third time we're having cases like this. The other day we heard about one on the Obirikwere flyover, and then in other parts of the country. And another problem that usually happens when we have accidents like this is Nigerians rushing to the scene to scoop as much as they can of the products that have been spilled. And a lot of times you wonder why, because you see in the news that the last time such a thing happened and the people who did this, they lost their lives. But the next time it happens, you still see people rushing to the scene to repeat the same thing. So that's another angle that should be looked at. While we look at the tanker drivers and putting up measures to curtail to stop this accident, you know, reduce the rate of the accidents, we also need to look at the people now. So let's look at that aspect. Now, what do you think can be done?
Yes, you know, they said it is a material condition of a man that determines his consciousness, and that's philosophical anyway. If you have nothing to live for, you'll be willing to die for anything. That's not to validate people putting their life in harm's way just to eke out something for themselves. But then again, what are the root causes of people knowing fully well the inherent danger in what they are doing, yet they still put themselves on the line of danger? What does that tell you? The level of poverty in the land has made people to, you know, throw caution in the wind, and, you know, so it's really unfortunate. But then again, I think
poverty.
No, of course, if you have something doing, and
this has been for a long time.
That means poverty has been on the land for a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is why.
But then, aside that, remember the last time it happened. Not the last time. One of those times it happened in my area. I remember once. I saw people rushing out, and these are not people who don't have things to do. These are people who have businesses. But they were trying to just see how they can pick up one or two for themselves for the day or two. So aside poverty,
if you have something meaningful doing, like for instance, I'm sure you equally need fuel. Now that you are here in the studio and you hear that the tanker falls somewhere, in, so will you rush?
The difference now is not just.
That's what I'm saying. That if you have, if you know what I'm saying,
the orientation also
poverty.
matters.
Agrees.
Yes,
I agree with you, but I think poverty is largely, see, let us not shy away from the realities on the ground. Poverty is largely the cause of why people would, regardless, they know, like you rightly said, people just died in Jigawa in droves. Now, assuming this situation was not properly controlled by the Nigerian army and the other agencies that were on ground, I'm sure people would have still rushed down to that place and tried to scoop fuel. How much is a liter of petrol? So you could imagine if somebody can get 10 liters, calculate 10 liters by 1,000 naira. That is what the president told us.
That's equivalent to his life.
So you can imagine. So as I said, if you have nothing to live for, You'll be willing to die for
if
anything.
you feel you have nothing to live
It's
for.
it's a thing of the mind. And how many people would reason like that? You know, I just told you that it is the material condition of a man that determines his consciousness. At times when you begin to look at things and it's okay, let me, okay, by the grace of God, let's see if this one, I will be lucky.
Professor, what about orientation? What about educating these people? Have you heard of incidents where, or maybe a fire incident, and then some people outside are thinking, oh, maybe that victim did not do the right thing. All I have to do is just go there. I won't spend so much time and then I'll run out. You know, did they have a wrong ideology about the whole scenario? So they feel like they could be smarter than the people who lost their lives in another state.
No, that's why I'm saying that. You think they don't know. Orientation can only be given to people who are completely ignorant. You know, when you are ignorant of the danger that is prevalent in activities like that, that is a different case. You don't even know. But in this case, they know. You know, they know that.
No place
so they
that.
are willing to take the risk. They know. You know, I think the best way to check these things is to, one, like we discussed in our initial, the position is, let us ensure that we don't have tankers falling every now and then, and also we have to be proactive, like what they did. You know, if it happens, people have to be on the ground to prevent people from coming, while we urge government to ensure that the people have a good life. That's the responsibility of governments. You know, ensure that the poverty is reduced to a minimum level. That I don't really need to be interested in, you know, a tanker that fell and the products are spilling, as you know, the products are being spilled on the roads, because I know that, you know, the risk cannot be measured with what I'm doing now and equally my life. So these are the things. It is something that has to do with a broader spectrum. You know, both governments, stakeholders. Orientation is also another place. Orientation can't be too much, but the best form of solving all these things is to ensure that it doesn't happen. Even if it happens, let there be, proactive measures, emergency response has to be swift, and you know, most importantly, the people needs to be, that poverty, the poverty level is humongous, and government needs to do something about it.
All right, talking about poverty now, you know, when it has, the time when the people can really show or to really change things is by electing the right people to take care of their affairs. Now, let's look at this next story, talking about election. Ahead of the November 16 governorship election in Ondo State, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has set up dedicated hotlines for media practitioners to ensure accurate reporting. Announced at a media workshop in Akure, these lines will facilitate quick information verification to support a free and fair election. Alhaji Amosa Lamidi, represented by Mr. Tope Onojobi, noted that a situation room would be available to handle calls and inquiries from journalists. INEC also emphasized the media's role in preventing violence and urged balanced reporting. INEC Sam Olumikon encouraged journalists voter apathy and maintain ethical standards. What do you think about this media hotline and all of these arrangements that have been explained to help, you know, with credibility in the election?
Well, there's nothing wrong about it. It's a good thing. I mean, it's a welcome development and a step in the right direction. Okay,
so do you see it being carried out, do you see it being as effective as it has been described?
No, I don't see it being as effective as it's described, because one thing is to provide information, another thing is what do you do with the information provided. You know, INEC should not, you know, feign ignorance of most of the anomalies that are occasioned in elections in this country. You know, okay, media outlines. So it's also so happening somewhere. What would INEC do about it? What has INEC done with all the information that they've gotten in the past? Nothing. So it's not as if when you come up with policies like this, you have that sincerity of purpose and intention. I keep talking about sincerity of purpose and intention. If it is not there, whatever policy you bring to the members of the public becomes inconsequential. You know, let us see INEC doing the right thing with what they've had in the past. Then people can now have that confidence.
Now let's see what you mean by doing the right thing. And you've talked about INEC getting information about some anomalies during elections and them not doing the right thing. So what exactly are you referring to when you keep saying doing the right thing?
Good. In all the elections that we've held in this country, since the inception of our First Republic down to the current state of affairs, we've always had election observers and monitors. And in each of all the elections, reports do come out. And most of the reports are usually the ills that that borders on the elections. Okay, you talk about vote buying. Is it low, the underperformance of electoral materials? You know, okay, in the case of the beavers machine and all of that. Is it the case of ad hoc staffs getting bribe from politicians, even some that are recorded on video that are submitted to INEC? Is it the case of vote buying that is against our electoral laws? How many people has INEC prosecuted? None.
So what do you think? What do you think is stopping them from doing the right thing?
Because they lack the political will to do so. INEC is supposed to be independent National Electoral Commission. I was
going to ask you that. Are they really independent?
They are not. So that is a militating factor. When you are independent by name and nomenclature, and you are not independent in the actual sense, where you can be influenced by the powers that be. So what gives people the impression that if I bring information to you, you are going to use it and mete out, punitive measures if necessary on anybody that is seen to be a saboteur to the electoral process. So it has become, an endemic issue. People have lost total confidence in INEC. So it becomes very difficult for me as an individual to say, okay, this is what I saw.
But
because I know that even if I tell you, you won't act on it. It will just be lying on the shelf and it becomes a case of motion.
But this innovation, don't you think INEC actually wants to, probably do things right this time by coming up with such an innovation?
Well, it's like as I said, that the innovation itself is not a terrible thing. It's a fantastic thing, even though it's not novel. It's not something that INEC just started it's not like somebody that just discovered fire or something. It has been in operation in. It's been operational in other countries, Western civilized nations. So it seems like these are not meant to be celebrated.
We have not. This is the issue.
Yeah,
when we have feats like this, Nigerians should actually come out and appreciate it.
Have I not appreciated it?
Even though we feel like, it has been happening in other climes and it's happening in other places. It's happening here now.
Have I not appreciated?
But you're saying it's happening in other civilized areas.
I said
like it's not like fire that was discovered.
I said it's not nuclear physics. It's not somebody just discovered a new planet. You understand?
Okay.
It's something that has been working in other climes.
And you don't think it's going to be viable here?
If that is,
are you saying there's no corruption with election in other climes where it's being used?
Now we are now going now to talk about institution. In those places that this thing work,
okay,
they have stronger institutions. You know, when the institutions are weaker and individuals are stronger, policies of government usually becomes so difficult, you know, to fly or to be implemented. That's why I said the policy is fine. It's a good one. Situational room, or anybody can pass, especially since it's going to be an immediate, you know, report. You know, the question now is, do we now get that same instant feedback or response to whatever reports that we think should be in the best interest of the commission? So INEC has so much to do to build that confidence in the people, because if you ask the average Nigerian, what do you think of INEC? They'll tell you that INEC belongs to the highest bidder. And it's quite unfortunate that people now see it as an all-commerce affair. So let us look at a situation where we can strengthen the institution itself so that people don't see themselves as, you know, as stronger than the INEC, to the extent that they can influence the activities of INEC.
All right, let's talk about strengthening the institution like you have mentioned. Who would strengthen the institution here? Because you're saying you've created a scenario that looks like, oh, powers that be will get to, it's not independent, powers that be are influencing the decisions of INEC in some way. So if you're talking about strengthening the institution, I would ask you how would do that, and who would do that if the powers that be are having a wrong influence on the results and the operations of INEC?
Well, you see, we have a National Assembly which constitutes the legislative arm of government. We have the judiciary, which also constitutes the judicial arm of government, you know, and they all have a major role to play in ensuring that INEC as an institution is strengthened.
So what has been going on if we have all of these that you have mentioned and yet?
What has been going on
so what is going to make the difference this time if we're talking about
now,
strengthening the INEC?
Now the difference will be that the people should continue to speak. I know people have been talking in the past, and obviously these institutions of government, the arms of government I just mentioned, are paying deaf ears to the call of the people for INEC to be completely independent. Probably because they are benefiting from the rots in the system, you know. But INEC themselves can equally resist that temptation when it comes. Assuming the chairman of INEC today has been given all that he needs to conduct an election, all that is needed, without any compromise. When I mean all in all sincerity. Even if you get a call from the president, you can tell the president, oh, sorry, sir, you have given me the responsibility to do so and so, and my loyalty now is to the people and to my work. Of course, the pressure would be so high. If it gets to the point where it's going to affect your integrity as a person, you can honorably resign and tell the Nigerian populace that this is the reason why I'm resigning. I have been given a responsibility, and at the same time, I've been asked to compromise, and my conscience would not allow me to do so. But have you seen anything like that happen in this country?
Let's go back to what you were saying earlier about strengthening the INEC, and you mentioned the judiciary and the rest of them.
Yeah.
And let's look at the role that they have to play. Well, your recommendation?
Well, my recommendation is this. Now, we have an electoral act that succinctly states that INEC should be completely independent. It is there. The laws are there. Now the question is, why are we not following the laws? The National Assembly, if they so desire, with sincerity of purpose and intention, if they so desire for INEC to function optimally without any interference, they can monitor the process and ensure that nobody interferes in the affairs of INEC. That's on the part of the legislative arm of government, because already the laws are there. If the laws are not there, I would have said that they should come up with laws that will enable INEC to be completely independent, get their funding, they spend it on what they think is needed for a successful election.
And you don't think that will be abused?
But the laws are there. Sorry?
And you don't think that will be abused in any way?
As I said, after that has been done, when you set up laws, you also set up a body to follow up and monitor such laws. That is why, that is where the judiciary now comes in. Now, if there are issues, if there is a conflict that requires the judiciary to come into it and resolve such conflicts as their primary responsibility, it is expected that the judicial arm of government does not compromise, especially as it has to do with the independence of INEC. So these are my recommendations. The judiciary should be upright when it comes to electoral matters. When it comes to electoral matters, and anybody who has been fingered to have, want to compromise this process, there has to be swift, punitive measures meted out through laws, which is they are stated there. It's not as if you are going to import laws from other country. The laws are there. So these are the issues. The judiciary, the legislative arm of government should ensure that the executive arm of government do not have so much influence on INEC.
Mufasa, I have further questions I would like to ask concerning that, but time would not allow.
No, we can still.
Questions like, do you see this happening anytime soon?
No, but of
you
course.
See anybody taking up that responsibility?
That is why I said it has to do with sincerity. If our leaders, if they have conscience, if they truly love this country, they can do it. Nothing is impossible.
Let's look at the FCT minister now. The Federal Capital Territory minister, Nyesom Wike, has confronted residents in the Lube area of Abuja on Tuesday over accusations of illegal land acquisition. The minister's visit followed recent protests against property demolitions in the area, with a video of the confrontation shared on social media. Now, Wike accused the residents of unlawfully claiming land, stating, "You cannot come to a place and seize land and say it's your own." The residents countered, saying they had legal documents proving ownership and had submitted them to the authorities. However, Wike dismissed their claims, asserting that every land in the FCT belongs to the FCT, citing a Supreme Court ruling that that area council lacked the authority to allocate land. Now, the incident is part of a broader crackdown by the FCT administration, which has recently conducted demolitions for violating Abuja's master plan. Who do we then hold responsible? If these people have legal documents, it simply means that monies have been spent to definitely get that done. But not to come to a conclusion now. I would like to get your analysis on what is happening with this land, Wike, and the residents of the FCT.
I think this is an issue that has been it has been around for a very long time. I mean, it's not just the FCT alone. There was the other day we talked about buildings not getting approval in Lagos State. Yet, they've been standing for quite some time. The question now is, where did they now get the documents they are claiming they have that gave them the permission to occupy where they are occupying? Do you blame the people or you blame the agency? On my own part, I think you blame the agency, because if you have people within the agency that are giving approval to residents, regardless of the fact that it does not conform with the master plan, I think the best thing first is to try to fish out who those corrupt agents are. Now, I know that they say ignorance is not an excuse in law, but if I'm showing you a document properly signed and stamped, gazetted, you know, with government seal, that means before you demolish that property, you have to give me, what do they call it now?
Compensation?
You have to, yes, you have to give me compensation. And that compensation has to be in full, in conformity with the current economic reality, because it's not fault of mine.
No,
I went to the office and I was given that. So now
do we have that? A lot of times we hear people say things like, "Oh, their land has been taken by government,"
because
and that's the end of it.
Because of the kind of system we operate, governments now treat the people as though the people don't even have a right. I listened to the altercation between the FCT minister and the residents, and I wasn't really impressed, because it was as if it was more or less like a war of words. You know, with all due respect to the FCT minister, there are certain lines you don't cross, because you are serving the people. You don't begin to treat the people as if they are nothing. You cannot be there unless the people, you know, gave you that mandate. You are serving at the behest of the president, and the president is a servant of the people. So, assuming this was faulty from what was discovered, because if it is not in the plan, it's not in the plan. So, how do we go from here? Do we just throw these people out into the streets? Or do we now think of a way to bring them to the negotiating table, show them what is in the master plan, show them how they faulted, ask how did you get this approval you're claiming you have?
Investigation.
Do a proper investigation. Then try to, you know, purge the system of these criminal elements. Then think of a proper way to compensate these people so that they can equally have somewhere else to move to. Well, when you say you want to demolish, throw them into the street, you are causing more menace in the society, because these people become homeless. Some of them become a menace to the society and to themselves, because, you know, it becomes a frustrated situation.
You know, first, this has affected a lot of people, and it's
Which
not
I quite agree
peculiar.
with you.
It's not peculiar to the FCT. I know of a particular story of a woman who that was her only property, but then it was taken away, and that was it.
Without compensation.
Do you understand? So people have experienced this over and over again. There's someone who was sharing the story here on the show once, when he said he had to go meet the governor because he has that relationship, and then he was told, "Oh, I'm even talking about giving you compensation and you're complaining. I'm not supposed to give you anything." You know, statements like that being made. So when you look at the approvals that were given, who gave the approval? And all the while when those buildings were being erected, what happened? Nothing. And then after the buildings were erected, all the while, what has been happening? So how do we really put a stop to this? I know you've talked about investigation now moving forward, right? But how do we really put a stop to this from, you know, prevent this from occurring over and over again?
We are still going back to institutions. How do you prevent this from occurring again? Like rightly said, it's not just in Abuja alone, and I'm equally sure that it's not just in that ministry alone. We have a lot of sharp practices ongoing in the ministry, agencies, department of government, and it is as a result of people don't get discipline for wrong behavior. I've always said that there has to be consequences for bad behavior. It doesn't matter the office you occupy. It could be possible that these persons that got this approval got it from somebody on the hierarchy in the scheme of things. The next thing, yeah, oh, these persons became the victim. Who are these persons? You will not know them. This minister comes and go. Another minister comes, and you know,
might not even be in office.
So it might not be. So it's an unending palaver. The only way this thing can be stopped is getting to the root of the matter, fish out the perpetrators. These people in the ministries and department of government who are engaging in these illegal practices, prosecute them. Prosecute them. Let Nigerians know. Let their colleagues know that they've been prosecuted. And the necessary punishment meted out on them. Published on the national dailies. It will serve as a deterrent to those who may have such intention in mind. Oh, very soon I'll be promoted to that office. I'll equally have the opportunity to equally do this and make, you know, illegal monies for myself.
If people will be prosecuted, there'll really be a lot of them, because aside the agents now, the people at the front desk,
there are collaborators now.
Understand?
All of them.
And it might be in other departments.
Good. If it's going to take the entire civil service, assuming without considering that everybody in that ministry is part of it, they should all go in for it. After all, there are army of unemployed youths outside that are looking ready to take up the position. And so these are the things. If you don't, people are not punished for bad behavior. It becomes a way of life.
People have said that the corruption that we have, not just in the civil service now, it's not about the individuals, but about the system. So that's why some people have said, even when the individuals change, the system, as long as it remains, they just begin to play according to the script. The system is run by individuals. The system don't run itself. The system, the ministry is the building. The paper works, the movement of one document from one office to the other, approval and all of that are done by individuals. So does it mean that every single individual has been corrupt all the while?
It's not possible that there are people who are in charge. Those people in charge are the ones that call the shots. You are working under me in a ministry. I mean it on a document, I give it to you, go and drop it in so office. You are under me. So there are certain cases, there are cases that you're not even permitted to go through that document. I give it to you, go and treat it and get back to me. You can't question me because I'm in charge. So when the hammer is falling, it falls on me that is in charge. Because they say he who acts through another acts himself. If 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 persons get punished and it is obvious and seen that this is what this person is being punished for, a lot of things will change. People are building on waterways, people are acquiring land, properties on lands that are not made. So it is wrong, but the approach of the minister, I really do not, it doesn't sit well with me.
Right. Thank you, Mufasa. Let's look at, we'll go on a short break, and after that we'll take this story on the president reshuffling his cabinet. I'm eager, like you, to find out what our guest has to say about this one. So please stay with us.
From the lands across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
We appreciate you for staying with us. Let's move to our next story. Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu has reshuffled his cabinet, removing 5 ministers and restructuring Nigeria's ministerial system on October 23. Among the significant changes, the Ministry of Niger Delta Development and the Ministry of Sports Development were scrapped. A new Ministry of Regional Development was established to oversee various regional development commissions across the country. The affected ministers include Uju Kennedy, that's Women Affairs Minister, Lola Adejon, Tourism Minister, Tahir Maman, Education, Abdullahi Mohammed Gwazo, State for Housing and Urban Development, and Jamila Bao Ibrahim, Youth Development. Additionally, former Minister Sunday Dare was appointed Special Advisor on Public Communication. We have Bianca Ojukwu was named Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, while the restructuring aims to improve governance and efficiency in the administration. This story has birthed a lot of reaction, down to the Livestock Ministry, down to Bianca Ojukwu, and all of that. There have been lots of reactions, and then straight from the major topic, which is the reshuffling of the cabinet. I know that I have heard Nigerians talk about the president, looking inward, reshuffling his cabinet, making the necessary changes. Some people have also said that, oh, the people around the president are probably not telling him the right things, what is actually happening in Nigeria. And some Nigerians started asking the question, does the president really know what we are facing as a people? And now this move by the president. So I'd like to know what Mufasa has to say about this one.
Well, it's what Nigeria will say a welcome development to some, but to some it will look as the usual activities in government. We've had cabinet reshuffle even in past administration. And, the question is, how effective has it been in improving governance? I think that is my major worry and concern. How does it improve governance? Already, we have a situation in this country where people have never complained of hunger and starvation before in this magnitude. So if the move the president has taken is going to improve governance, then we'll say it's a good one. But for now, I will not get excited by a mere cabinet reshuffle. You are reshuffling a cabinet, and at the same time, you told Nigerians that those that are not performing have been removed and all of that. The question a lot of Nigerians are asking is, what about the petroleum sector? I'm aware that the president is in charge of that ministry. And we have Minister for State Gas, Minister for State Downstream, I think, yes, Enekin Lokbobiri and his what makes the Ministry of Petroleum not to be touched? Can they inform us or tell us any significant impact? Just one significant impact the Ministry of Petroleum has affected in the lives of Nigerians and in the life of this administration. So much money has been spent on maintaining just one refinery. Not the three, just Port Harcourt refinery. And they keep giving us promises that in 2 weeks' time it will come upstream. It has become an unending 2 weeks. A 2 weeks of perpetuity. And you are doing cabinet reshuffle, you are sacking ministers, and nothing was said about the petroleum ministry. The group managing director is still seated there as GMD. So for me, I really do not see any sincerity of purpose and intention. I think it's just for the optics. It's part of government activities. You know, like I've said before, it's not, reshuffling of cabinets does not translate to the government working.
But some people have talked about
it can
not being as effective as they should.
Sorry?
Some people have talked about some of these ministries not being as effective as they should be.
Okay.
So reshuffling, getting, don't you, even the merging, you know, when people have talked about the cost of governance or some of these ministries should be merged, these are some things that people have called for.
You are merging, but you are introducing some. You sacked 5 ministers and you brought in 7. How do you reconcile that? The Minister of Livestock, we don't have that before.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Why are we having the Minister of Livestock when there's already an agricultural, Minister of Agriculture?
When this was talked about earlier, it was explained.
And I refused, and I was one of those.
How much Nigeria earns, or how much comes in from the livestock production and the sales of these products, the end products of it. So that was what was mentioned when they talked about the introduction of livestock ministry.
And I didn't buy it. I wasn't one of those people that, that jumped up.
What about the fact that they said it's going to reduce the farmer-herders clash?
All this can be incorporated in the Ministry of Agriculture. It can be a direct. What you just need to do is create a directorate of livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture. You know, it's not as if the scope is so wild that it cannot be contained in that ministry. You understand? It is just a vicious circle. What they succeeded in doing yesterday is, for me, is a distractive mechanism. Let's get Nigerians talking, and we do what we like.
This is a huge step.
This
is a huge decision that looks more than just getting Nigerians talking.
It is not a huge decision to me. To me, there's nothing huge about it.
There's nothing huge about it.
It is not the first time. Cabinet reshuffle, Obasanjo did it, Jonathan did it. I think Buhari did it just once. It does not translate to anything unless you now begin to see difference in the mode of running government. And now the current issue that we are talking, that is plaguing this country, is the issue of petroleum refineries not working. Our naira in fact, our currency has been so devalued, has been so worthless that a dollar now is almost 1,070. I think 170 or thereabout. 1,700.
About the naira looking stable.
So you are talking about education, talking about industry, sports, and all of that. And let us stop chasing shadows. Why did the president not look into the Ministry of Petroleum and call himself to order? Because he's the minister in charge of that ministry.
So should he change?
He can just step aside completely and get capable hands.
Is the president the problem? Him being the minister of petroleum, is that the problem?
The president is the problem.
Ministry.
The president is the problem, with emphasis. He's in charge. So who do you blame for it? If you want to, if this organization is failing, you blame the management. You don't blame the staff, because if the staffs are not doing well, it behoves on the management to ensure that the staffs are doing well, provided you provided all that is needed for the staffs to be effective.
Some people.
So what they usually do is they change management. The petroleum ministry is underperforming, and the president is in charge of that ministry. Why has the president not changed himself? Why do we still have the likes of Eneki Lokbobiri and the other minister for state? Why are they still seated there? Why do we still have Mele Kyari, who has not been able to explain why the Port Harcourt refinery, regardless of this humongous amount that is spent on that refinery, why is this still seated there and the refinery is not working? Why are Nigerians buying petrol at the rate of 1,250 naira today in Port Harcourt? Why is it so difficult for our aged mothers, sisters, aunties and uncles in the rural areas? Why is it difficult for them to get kerosene to cook their food? Why are we buying a kg of LPG, which is a regular cooking gas, at the rate of 1,500 naira today? These are the issues. Unless these issues are addressed, whatever they are doing is just for the optics.
So you're not looking at any other thing.
There's nothing special about this.
Even during the last protest, the bad governance protest, the protesters, one of the things that was mentioned was reducing the cost of governance.
Yeah, and I just told you that
and merging of ministries.
And they sacked five. They sacked five and brought in 7.
But then let's talk more about this petroleum industry, since you've talked about it now. Some people have said that Mele Kyari coming up with talks about the refinery being functional at a particular time and it's not happening. Some people have seen him, some people right now see him as just a figurehead. They feel like he really isn't the one who is in charge at that moment, that he's just occupying that seat. So if we have a change in the management of that particular sector, how effective would it be if these people are, like some people have seen them, just occupying seats and not really the ones handling the case and, you know, calling the shots in that ministry?
Well, it's the one we see every day on TV. It's the face we see every day on the national dailies. Who does he report to?
So the change of the persons, the management, is that really going to give us the results that we want?
Just allow me to land. He has somebody that he reports to, who happens to be the president, because the president is in charge of that ministry. So who question the president? Let it be that Mele Kyari has been removed. Then they bring in capable hands, assuming without conceding that, oh, this person is a figurehead. The little that he can do, because he still has to report to the president, and maybe if he comes up with something that is viable, the president may not want it. And I wonder, why would the president not want a refinery to function? It doesn't sound well in the ears. Assuming without conceding that Mele Kyari has been putting forward significant proposals that will enable our refineries start functioning. Assuming that that is the case and the president is not listening, the president also wants the refineries to function, how does that even sound to the ear?
So he hasn't been doing that, and yet funds
from what we are seeing today, it's obvious that nothing is being done about it. It's the same old stories. Oh, turnaround maintenance. Oh, in next 2 weeks. Oh, in 2 weeks' time.
I wonder how that is supposed
and
to be done in 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks, in fact, this is the longest 2 weeks in the history of mankind. Nigeria, we have a way of creating and breaking our own records. In the history of mankind, it is only in Nigeria that we've seen a 2 weeks that has never ended. You know, when you start having the 2 weeks promise was made last year. That promise of 2 weeks was made last year. And this is October 24th.
Before last year, we have been giving promises
of 2 weeks. 2 weeks now.
Before last year, it's been
no.
Before last year, we've been told that the Port Harcourt, especially the Port Harcourt refinery.
Nidoye Jackson, please. I'm talking about the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Okay. I'm not talking about before. I'm talking about
so
after.
You think the problem is with this administration?
Because it is this administration that told us subsidy is gone.
So what does that have to do with the functionality of the refinery?
It has so much. Now, if you are removing subsidy, which has made petroleum products to be a little bit affordable. You came and you say subsidy is gone. It is expected that immediately, at most, let us just bear the hardship for 2 months, because the billions they claim they were paying for subsidy, if you don't pay that money for just 1 month, it will be enough to even build a working refinery. How long did it take Dangote to build a refinery from the scratch? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came in on May 29, 2023 and told us during his inaugural speech that subsidy is gone. And from that time till today, that was when they promised us that Port Harcourt refinery will be functional in 2 weeks. 2 weeks started from this administration, and it has become the longest 2 weeks in the history of mankind. So I give that to this administration.
So you're calling
they've been able to create a record.
You're calling the president's attention to that particular ministry.
He knows. I'm not the one doing
what
so.
What is your recommendation?
I'm recommending that the old secrecy, the shady deals, the cartel and mafia group, because I'm not the one that said it was Dangote that said that there is a mafia group that is worse than the drug cartel in Mexico and Colombia. The cartel and the mafia group, they must unmask the cartel and tell us why. They tell us why it's so difficult for a country like Nigeria to have a functional refinery.
All right, thank you, Mufasa.
They should tell us that.
We expect that particular answer. And we expect more to be done in that particular ministry. It's affecting every single aspect of the country. Let's look at the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria approving a $618 million loan from the procurement of 6 M346 fighter jets and related ammunition for the Nigerian Air Force. The announcement was made by the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, during a briefing in Abuja. The loan comprises approximately 443 million euros and $141 million from various financiers. This move is part of the country's efforts to bolster its military capabilities. The Nigerian Air Force had earlier revealed plans to acquire a total of 24 M346 combat jets and a whole lot of that. What is your thought on this?
Well, it's a good thing. Anything that will improve the efficacy of the Nigerian military is okay for me. I know that even in civilized climate in Europe and America, so much is being expended on security. It's very, very important. And if the money is actually used, that is another thing. If the money is actually used, because it is a loan request, that has been approved for the military to get this hardware to aid in the fighting of insecurity. I know that there was a time that we purchased, I think, some Tucano jets from the United States of America. And of the truth, I tell you, we really have not seen much being achieved with that equipment, even though we are not in the military. And to the extent of what we know, that is what we know. We are not in the front line. But like I've said before, anything that we aid in the efficiency of the Nigerian military is good to go for me. All
right, thank you. Let's look at the Social Economic Rights Accountability Project, that's SERAP, demanding that the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, retract his threat to arrest beggars in Abuja or face legal action. The minister issued the threat during a road construction ceremony at Katampe district, but promising a crackdown starting Monday to prevent Abuja from turning into a beggar city. Wike suggested that some individuals posing as beggars could be criminals, and because of this, he made that statement. But in response, Serap argued via social media that penalizing people for their socio-economic status is unjust. The group urged Wike to address poverty's root causes and offer support for the homeless rather than criminalizing vulnerable individuals. Then what do you do? Okay, let me not start with analyzing that story now. We discussed this yesterday, and from the thought of our guest, he mentioned that even though he sees that that could be defacing a city, just like Serap has said, the root causes should be addressed. But I'd like to bring you up on this story.
Oh, well, I think, of course, it will not be very nice that you have beggars on every street corner, especially in the Federal Capital Territory. It doesn't really tell well of the city. But then again, I'm aware that we have beggars even in Washington, D.C., which is equally the seat of power of the United States of America. So we have beggars in Paris, we have beggars in London, we have beggars in England. But I am also aware that they are properly managed. But in the case of Nigeria, like what Serap has said, instead of threatening them with arrest, you can make provisions for them. Unless, of course, you have enough prisons. You have large spaces to keep all of them. Let us equally check, why do we have beggars? Was it like this 10 years ago? When I mean was it like this, I'm talking about the proportion. When you measure it with what we had in the past. We have beggars everywhere. Corporate beggars, regular beggars. They are, in fact, it's
Is that not something that should be addressed?
It's a terrible
if it's
situation.
As much as you have mentioned, and you've even talked about some of the types that we have, is that not something that should be addressed?
Agreed. Like the minister said, he has a responsibility to maintain sanity in Abuja. There could be beggars, there could be criminals who pretend to be beggars. Like what he said, that's true. But then again, it is also the responsibility of the authority of the FCT, headed by the FCT minister, to carry out proper investigation, fish out those who are pretending to be beggars, who are the criminals, because that is why you have intelligence agencies. You know, if we have intelligence agencies that are truly working, like the SSS and the likes, you can profile some of these people. Then the actual beggars, who by no fault of theirs, I'm not sure there is dignity in begging. No sane human being would want to take to begging. You know, there's no dignity in that. But there are certain situations you find yourself, and you know, instead of going into crime and criminality, it's okay, let me beg for alms. And something could have led to that. And one of the best ways to address that is still profiling. You don't need to just arrest them, you profile them. And the ones that can be assisted, you give them assistance. They are Nigerians. You know, you create alternatives for them. Of course, you don't have to
be the ones that are Nigerians, because there talks about some of these people coming in from other countries.
The ones who come from other countries who don't even have the legitimacy, because Nigeria shouldn't be a dumping ground for people who don't have anywhere to go. You understand what I'm saying? Even before you can stay in the street of New York or Paris or one of to beg, you have to be a citizen. Even beggars should have citizenship, you know. So those ones that are not Nigerians, who are illegal immigrants, of course, those ones can be sent back to their country. You can't keep them in the prison. You have to make necessary provisions for them to be sent back to their country, because they are illegal, you know, they are illegal immigrants. But the ones who are legit, you know, there has to be adequate provisions for them. Like I've said before, there's no dignity in begging. So if somebody has been pushed, you know, to that way of life because of the condition he found himself, then the government has a responsibility to provide for that person welfare.
All right, thank you, Mufasa. You have spoken the mind of some Nigerians, especially some of them who are seeing us right now. Thank you very much for your analysis on all of the stories that have been discussed.
Thank you for having me.
And big thanks to you for being part of this conversation. We'll talk about other stories happening in Nigeria tomorrow, same time, same station. And some of them might just be updates on the stories that we discussed today, especially talking about the cabinet reshuffle. There'll definitely be more reactions from Nigerians and other aspects to that story. So make sure you keep a date with us tomorrow at 8 a.m. on Atlantic Television Network. And also stay connected with us on ATN socials, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network. On Instagram and TikTok, we are Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X at Atlantic TV Net. Do well to watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you again. My name is Enidoye Jackson. Stay with us, as coming up next is Open Conversation.
Front lines across the ocean. Front lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains. Through the Sahara, we bring all the sport